Good afternoon. Welcome to our book talk, 52 Shabbats. And thank you everyone for coming to our Zoom program on a beautiful Sunday in June. This program is sponsored by Congregation B'nai Shalom, the Contra Costa Jewish Community Center, and Diablo Valley Hadassah in partnership with the Jewish Book Council. Faith Kramer is a food writer and recipe developer, concentrating on the foodways, history, and customs of the Jewish diaspora. She has written hundreds of posts on her website about Jewish customs and food, travel, and global ingredients with accompanied recipes. They can be found at, and I'll say it very slowly, cookbook.com, and we'll add it to the chat. Claire, if you could do that, cookbook.com, so that you can travel abroad with Faith as she's going to be doing.
If I could interrupt 1 minute, people can go to faithkramer.com,
Okay.
FAITHKRAMER.com, and that's my new website, and there's a link.
Okay.
There's a link there, right, to click Blog Appetit, so you don't have to worry about spelling it out in your browser. And also there's a link to everything I write for the J, the Jewish News of Northern California.
Yes, and she does, I think, still 2 monthly recipes that you share.
Do 2 columns a month, yeah.
Right, thank you. Her book is wonderful. It's won awards. It's gotten brilliant reviews, superb reviews, even better than brilliant. And her book makes a wonderful gift now that we're looking at the high holidays, and all of you who are going to be sharing a high holiday dinner, meal, breakfast, lunch, whatever, with friends and family. It's a great gift and much better than candles. So why don't you spice up your kitchens and house with some real authentic aromas. Anyhow, enough of me. Faith, take it away.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about my background in the book, and I want to talk a little bit about the food we're going to be demoing today. And then I understand that Reva has some questions that will do that, and then we can answer your questions. I'm really thrilled to be here. The support I've gotten from the Jewish community and JCCs around the country for this book has just been overwhelming. I feel like so blessed. The book came about from my almost now 15 years of writing for the J. You probably see my byline if you subscribe to the J. If you would like to subscribe to the J and you have never subscribed before, the J has given me a code. You go to jweekly.com, sign up for a subscription, and if you put in 52 Shabbats, you'll get it for $10 for a full year, which is a 78% savings, they told me. So if you're interested in getting recipes from me every 2 weeks, ready or not, that's the way to go. So because of my work with Jewish food writing, I started to feel like every recipe has a story. And if for Jewish food, it's a particularly Jewish story, and that it's a story of our migration, our diaspora, our adoption and adaption of local cuisines, and creating something new and vital out of what has been often, hard or difficult experiences. And that's kind of compounded by the home-based nature of much of Judaism, and how a lot of our celebrations take place in the home and they take place around food. I mean, we all know about matzah at Passover, or fried oily things like literally latkes at Hanukkah. But there's special foods that we eat all throughout the year to help us connect to God, to our religion, to each other, to our community. And the stories behind these foods go behind the religious. They go into the economic. There's something called the gefilte fish line, where above this line in Poland, all the gefilte fish and the sweet and sour cabbage is a little sweeter than it is elsewhere. Well, why did that happen? How did that happen? Well, it happened because there were a lot of laws against what Polish Jews could or couldn't do. One thing they could do is they could raise sugar beets, process sugar beets, and sell that sugar. And so sugar was widely available and Polish food became a little sweeter. So there's all these interconnections in the stories between the ingredients, the communities, the recipes, and the food that we eat, and the symbolism we give it. So today we're going to do some food that has a connection to the Jewish spice trade. For a few hundred years, 300 years maybe, Jews had a monopoly on the spice trade. They could go where the Muslims couldn't, and they could go where the Christians couldn't. So they set up these community of networks all through the spice route. And that's how Jews got as far apart as Kaifeng in China. And they got to Kerala with pepper in India. And they also, Yemen was a big trading post for that spice route. And so we're going to focus on some of the foods from Yemenite Jews. The Yemenite Jews predate, they're like millennia old, 2 millennia, maybe more. They predate Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews, excuse me. And their food reflects the availability of all these spices. And we're going to start by making a little spice mix known as hawaj. Think of it as kind of a Yemenite curry. And then we're going to use it to make zoug, which is a jalapeno-based hot sauce. And then we're going to use that zoug as part of our grilled corn, kind of a Middle Eastern grilled corn. And yes, it looks a lot like a Mexican grilled corn, and that's what gave me the inspiration. But this grilled corn has tahini and pomegranate molasses and zoug and other good things on it. And then we're going to make this grilled Yemeni chicken, which gives you a very simple, very fast. Now, all these things are great for summer Shabbat. They're nice. They're a nice menu for the upcoming Father's Day on Sunday the 18th. And they just are good recipes for any time. And the spice mix, which we'll make first, it's not hot. It's spicy, but it's not hot. So before we start with this, did you have some questions that you wanted to ask me, Rita?
So how did you choose your recipes? Was it because they were your favorite personally? Or do you think it's because they are exotic and maybe attract a cookbook audience? Or perhaps the ingredients could be better found in the United States?
Well, I'm very grateful for some very famous cookbook authors because they made some ingredients that I love, like pomegranate molasses, really well known. It used to be if I told someone to use pomegranate molasses in a recipe, I got a lot of pushback. Oh, what did I use the rest of the bottle for? And now they know what it is and they appreciate it. And if I tell people to use an unusual ingredient, like making this hawashi spice, I give them lots of ways they can use it. So there should never be an abandoned bottle back at your pantry. I picked these recipes because these are the recipes I make my friends and family. I picked the recipes because they were illustrative of some of the things I wanted to say about the Jewish communities around the world. For example, I have one of my favorite recipes, but it's in the winter chapter, is a layered vegetable and chicken pilav. So it's this big rice dish, and it's got, when you turn it out, it's got a layer of onions and vegetables and chicken and more vegetables and the saffron rice. And that's always fun to turn out on live TV to see if it's going to plop or flop. And that's a recipe I created because I wanted to touch base with some of the Bukharan Jewish, Central Asian Jewish customs. And they have a custom of eating a dish, something like that, every Friday night. Now theirs is more rice, less meat, different seasoning maybe, and it's not like a main course. But I felt I wanted to make the connection with that. So I have recipes I love, recipes I feel that help tell the Jewish food story, and then recipes that are inspired by ingredients throughout the Jewish tradition. I have a dessert recipe for around Hanukkah time, although it's great anytime. And you take bits of challah and you kind of make like a French toast batter with it, with either bananas or jam, and you fry them up as little balls. And you serve them in a sweet tahini sauce. And I was just trying to, what can I, how can I get Jewish ingredients into this? How can I say something about Hanukkah and Jewish food and just kind of combine this all? And sometimes that's the genesis. Other recipes are in there because my husband really liked them. And since he does all the dishes and did all the dishes for all these recipes, there are almost 100 recipes in the book, I kind of listen to him, and he's my taste tester of choice. So
have you talked to someone who grew up or was born in Yemen, a Jewish individual, to find out if this was how their bubi made it, bubi being more Yiddish?
I have been in a situation where people have been at my, I do these spice workshops where people actually get to make little jars of 3 spices. They make this Hawaji spice. Viva, are you there? Because
I'm here.
Okay, there's someone phoning in, I guess, and I disappeared from the screen. Then we make this Hawaji spice from Yemen. We make an Ethiopian spice called babar, and we make satara from the Middle and Near East. And then you get recipes and we talk about it. We talk more about the spice trade. And then usually the hosts have prepared a meal where you get to try all the foods. So I've been at those when someone says, oh, we make this, and this is what my family makes. And it tastes just like it. So I was like, yes, yes, yes. So that has happened to me with the Yemen food and the Central Asian food. And there's a dessert recipe in the book. It's called Turkish coconut pudding. And it's a part of vegan pudding. And it uses rice flour and coconut milk. And it's a satla, which is, you find versions of that throughout the North Africa and Near East. And my version is based on some Turkish food, but I was doing a live presentation where they were cooking along and eating along, and they got to dessert and they said, this is just like the Iraqi pudding my mother made. How did you ever get the recipe? So I think I hit those notes, but I'm not trying to be authentic. I'm just trying to give people really good food that has a connection to the Jewish community. I like to say you come for the stories, and I tell a lot of stories about the food and the ingredients and the communities. You stay for the recipes, or vice versa. You come from the recipes and you learn so much from the stories.
Great. Why don't we start with the demo, and then we'll do more questions after.
Okay, so we're going to start with this almost instant Hawaji. I like to stay out of the authenticity wars. So every family back in Yemen or from a Yemen background have their own recipe for something like this. Every region will have differences. Every vendor will make it slightly different. Most likely they'd start with whole spices that they would then roast and grind. We're starting with ground spices. So I just call it almost instant Hawaj because it's going to give you that same impact, and you can decide how authentic it is for yourself. So I already put the cumin and turmeric in here, and we're going to add some ground cloves and some ground ginger. You can see it's very fragrant here. We don't have smell-o-vision. I wish we did. Then some black pepper. And I think that really is what distinguishes this from like a curry, which is pretty similar. And we have some cardamom. And last but not least, we have some ground coriander. And then I have a spoon handy if I need it, but then you just shake it up, shake, and then you're ready to bake with it. And so this is Hawaji. I wish you could all smell it. It really smells. It smells like a soup that you walked into a spice shop, and it's ready to go, and it can be used in the recipes we're demonstrating today, as well as a few others. You can use the marinade for the chicken. You can use it as marinade for whole roast cauliflower or other vegetables that you want to grill or roast. You can use it in the spice trade fish stew. And then probably my favorite soup recipe in the book is the Hawaji vegetable soup. I mean, my favorites change, but currently it's my favorite soup. Ask me in 2 weeks, it might not be. And it's a Hawaji vegetable soup. And I actually like to make it with little matzo balls in there. And sometimes I'll sneak in some chicken if I don't need it totally vegetarian. And it's a great soup. And this, just a tablespoon or two of this little magic powder, just packs a punch and gives it all the flavor that you could possibly want. So that is the Hawaji spice, and you have that recipe in your handout. And I guess it'll be on the website.
How long before the flavors don't work as much because it becomes stale? How long can you keep it?
Well, that's always a tricky question. My spices, I go through these spices pretty regularly, so they haven't been already sitting for a year next to my stove, like right over here. So they haven't faded out. So something like this, if I keep it in a cool, dark place, it will probably last 6 months. You can even keep it in the fridge if you wanted to go longer. But if you're using older spices, it's maybe not as potent, and it might not last that long.
Okay, thank you.
I always taste older spices to make sure that they usually don't turn rancid. They usually just don't have the same pop of flavor, and that's easily fixed by using more. So I'd say 6 months to a year in a cool, dark place, a little bit longer in the freezer or the refrigerator, assuming you started with pretty fresh spices to begin with. So now we're going to take the Hawaji we made, and we're going to turn it into something. We're going to turn it into zood. So I've already chopped most of the, this is a new to me Cuisinart, so if I seem to fumble, I am fumbling. I've already chopped most of it. Now, the recipe calls for 9 ounces of jalapenos. Why do I use ounces rather than giving a number? Because this was my one single jalapeno that is so large. I mean, that is the largest, that is larger than my mouth, larger than my nose. It is a big jalapeno. So if I just call for 2 jalapenos or 5 jalapenos or whatever, so I say 9 ounces. And you could, if you want a milder sauce, seed it, take out the seeds and the core. If you want to sub out serrano or some other pepper, you can even use red peppers if you want. So we're going to put in some extra virgin olive oil. And we're going to see if I remember how to put the lid on. So Reba, can you see this? Can people see this?
Yeah, it's very visible.
Okay, and then we're going to hit that. And depending on the size of your blender or processor, you might need to do this in batches. And then we're going to add the Hawaji. If you don't have Hawaji, you can just add some cumin. But the Hawaji, as you saw, what wonderful ingredients it has and this phenomenal aroma, and it's really going to pump up the taste. So we'll add that. Got 4 large crushed garlic cloves. We'll put in there. We have some salt. I use, unless I specify otherwise, I'm always using a non-iodized fine sea salt or fine table salt. I specify when I'm using coarse salt or kosher salt, because by volume, if you said 1 ounce of salt, all salts are the same. If you say a teaspoon of salt, all salt is different because of its shape and volume. So you need to, so that's important, because if you used there's something called for a teaspoon of kosher salt and you use a teaspoon of regular salt, you'll be over salting. So if you don't have the right salt, go slowly and taste as you go. And then for this, we're going to use a combination of cilantro and parsley. You could use all cilantro, you could use all parsley. I like it best with all cilantro. I think I'm going to do this in batches. Some people don't like the taste of cilantro, so you can sub all part of the cilantro for parsley. And just scrape that down. Last of the leaves in here. And it's going to be something that's going to be kind of a thick paste. You can thin it with a little olive oil if you want to use it as a drizzle, on meat or fish or grilled vegetables, or you could just kind of spoon it on as is. It's also really nice with a topping of grated tomatoes if you're making something with it. Yeah, take some out. I'm glad I have glasses on. I think my eyes are going to start tearing in a moment because I did not take out the seeds. So here we have some of the completed Zug. I write it Z''H''OUG. Some people do it CSH. Some people do CH. It goes under a lot of names. It's got a lot of regional variations, but however you do it, it's usually really pretty delicious. And I've made some before, and I put some on the grilled corn and on the grilled chicken. So do you want to do some more questions, or should we go on to the grilled corn?
Let me ask you, or do you think that all your recipes, they're for Shabbat, but they also are for every day of the week? Or do you think they are so special that they deserve a place of honor on Shabbat?
Well, let me break that down. I think Shabbat should always be special, but what's special about Shabbat is intention. You know, if you're making a prettier table, you're getting flowers, you're making a special recipe, you're making a recipe that connects back to Jewish food history, whatever it is, it's your intention to make Shabbat is what stands out for me. But not everybody has time to cook everything all on Shabbat. So most of the recipes have make ahead steps or things that can be made partially ahead. And I point that out where I can, so you could break it down. So that means that these menus are also good for any day. And the menus themselves, I try not to be, sometimes steamed green beans are all you need to offset something. And I'm not trying to, so if you want to sub out your green bean recipe for my charred green recipe, you want to buy some brownies or make your family's favorite brownies instead of making my dessert, I think that's great, just as long as people have the intention. But the recipes also work for holidays, and each chapter starts with an introduction to the season, and I talk about the Jewish calendar, because for me it's hard to separate out the Jewish food that we eat from the Jewish calendar. And then as part of that, we talk about the holidays. And so I'll give suggestions for Passover. I'll give suggestions for Tu B'Shvat. I'll give suggestions for Purim and Sukkot, all the major holidays, and then a few that perhaps I might pay attention to as someone who has to write a cooking column every 2 weeks that maybe the general public doesn't pay attention to. And then some of the months themselves have very strong food connections. Elul, the first of Elul, is considered a time of celebration. It's a time of getting ready for a Rosh Hashanah, and you should have a joyful meal. In some of the Chabad communities associate a joyful meal with a meat meal, for example. And Adar, and Adar 2, when we have a double month of Adar, is associated in Jewish, I don't know what to call it, astrology? I don't know if that's quite right, the word. In Jewish mythology with different animals and creatures, and Adar is with the fish. And the fish is considered lucky and a good sign of prosperity and fertility. So it's kind of accustomed to eat fish then. So there's many, many ways you can use this book. And I just say go through it with a couple of stickies, mark the recipes you'd like, shop for those pantry items. And if you do that for 3 to 5 recipes, you probably have everything you need to make everything in the book.
Because even though it isn't even yet summer yet, what recipes in your book would you recommend the 2 top for the high holidays?
For high holidays. Well, I guess my son's favorite brisket, which is my pomegranate molasses brisket. And I guess it's always a trouble for me to separate what I might like to try for some holiday and what my family wants to eat, because the family, this is their turn to get matzo ball soup and brisket and everything, but there's a whole other side of Passover food from from Rosh Hashanah's food from other different sources. And a lot of people are starting to get into the concept of a Rosh Hashanah Seder, order of service, where they're presenting different foods that are symbolic. So it might be the head of the fish, or they might use a head of cauliflower. They might have leeks to symbolize the cutting of ties and old promises to God, or what have you. And there is a Greek-based recipe in the book for an oregano chicken that's served with leek and mint patties. Now, the leek and mint patties, because they're fried in oil, you could do for Hanukkah or Passover, and you can make it with matzah for Passover, but they really come into play for Rosh Hashanah. So I like that dish if you want a chicken dish. And then, for dessert, I always like something, you can't go wrong with the flowers chocolate cake. I have a lot of, the book has got the 52 main recipes, which are mostly main courses, a few appetizers or side dishes, but mostly main courses, and they have menus. And then there's a section on accompaniments, a section on desserts, and then what I call fundamentals. And that's where you find your challah. Maybe you'll make your challah in the shape of a turban or a round challah for the holiday, or you'll enrich it with something like raisins or almonds, or maybe add some saffron and make it kind of golden in color, because that would a symbol of prosperity and gold coins and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use the book and the recipes.
Thank you. Maybe we'll continue now with more of the main ingredients.
Okay, so let's go to making this corn. I'm gonna move the chicken out of the way here. Guess what I'm having for dinner, folks? So here's the corn, and it's, I've seen corn recipes all around. It's kind of, I was afraid that's kind of twirling around on me. I've seen corn recipes all around the world. And I've been in Jordan and been served cups of corn with hot sauces on it. I've been I had grilled corn in places in Southeast Asia. I've had, of course, the Mexican street corn here. And and I guess the most surprising place I saw corn was in my first trip to China. I saw it used in a stir fry, and not baby corn, but whole corn. So it was always kind of I kind of think of it as not something that's a classic of all these cuisines, but it's been enjoyed. It's such a great thing. Grilled corn or street corn or cups of corn is so great. So we're gonna make our own version of it. And I'm gonna find my brush, which I didn't take out a minute, sorry. And we start with like a seasoned oil. I'll just pick one of these guys. And we brush it all with a seasoned oil. So I grill these, but you can do them any way you like. I give directions for grilling in the husks. And then when I went to buy corn, all the corn I had access to was out of the husk. So I grilled it without the husk. So it's very, very adaptable. And now once we've got the spice mix on it, we can start juicing it up, zoozing it up. And today we have the zug, but you could use harassa, or you could use both if you wanted. We have tahini, and you can make tahini or tahini sauce. I have some non-dairy yogurt, since this is going with a meat dish. But if it's not going with a meat dish, you could use regular yogurt. And you could also sprinkle crumbled feta or vegan feta over the top if you're making it more of a meal. I tend to serve it as a starter, but I guess it's traditionally a side dish. So I'm gonna drizzle some of my plain yogurt. Make sure especially with non-dairy, make sure it's plain. Some of those non-dairies have vanilla in them. Then I've got some pomegranate molasses. Now, pomegranate molasses is probably one of my favorite ingredients. And I just love how it's sweet and tart. I love its connection to the Middle and Near East. I first had it in Turkey, so I guess I have to include North. And I like to do, in the book, I give so many ways you can use it in so many recipes, but one of the simplest recipes is a dip. It's in the chapter with the fruit and salad rolls, which are in rice paper. I give a dip for that. That's just literally tahini and pomegranate mozzarella mixed together. And it's just a phenomenal dip, makes a great breakfast on your toast and stuff. So I have some tahini sauce here. Do that. I have some of the zug. If the zug is too thick, you can thin it with a little olive oil, but I'm just gonna smush it down with my spoon here. And now I have another sauce here that I don't give a recipe for, although I talk about it and I do recommend it. It's called amba. Amba is just like zug became from the Yemeni immigrants who were doing the falafel stands and became well known throughout Israel that way. Amba came from the Iraqi Jewish immigrants. It's an Iraqi Israeli condiment, and it's basically like a sour mango with a curry flavor in it. It's fermented. I buy it at the local kosher store, but you can get it in some Middle Eastern markets and online. And I even camp with it because it just adds this powerful punch of flavor to like a grilled dish or just a rice dish or something, that it just adds a layer of flavor. I don't know about the layers of flavor. And when I camp with it, I buy it in the squeeze bottle. But so I add some of that. And then we're going to finish it with a little chopped cilantro. You could use mint, you can use parsley, and some chopped green onion. And there it is. Be sure to serve it with a lot of napkins because it is messy, but it is delicious. And it comes together. It's taken me longer to explain it than it would come together for you. So then let me get this out of the way. And you want to ask me some questions before we go into the chicken?
You said it was a flavored oil you put on. Do you have a recipe for that?
No, it's basically you see how kind of thick the soup comes out. Oh, the flavored oil that I put on before I did everything else. Yes, it's in the recipe. It's, I didn't take the time to spec it here, but you can customize it. I often use a mix of sumac, chili flakes, dried mint, salt, pepper, but there's a recipe for it in the handout.
And can you buy it commercially?
No, you make it.
Okay.
And make extra because it makes a great sauce. You could brush it on anything, just a little bit before you grill it or broil it or something. It adds a lot of, all these things just kind of add little bits of flavor. And that way, I like to add flavor in ways that are relatively easy that add interest. So sometimes it's garnishes that add textural interest, or it's sometimes a garnish that, like the amba cuts through like the starchiness of the corn, or the pomegranate molasses gives a sweet tart finish to something that might be very rich. So I like to look for things like that that give a maximum wow with minimum effort.
There's a question that's somehow just popped up. What are the, I have to find out what is the chat. No, anyhow, I don't know what happened to the chat. Disappeared, but she mentioned
I can't see it from where I'm at. So.
It disappeared on me, but the person who talked about tahini, if you could type it in again, thank you. Maybe we'll take a minute to talk about your own ancestry and how that impacted your cooking.
Well, I guess the major thing that impacted my cooking is that my mother's mother was who was Ashkenazi Jewish, was a terrible, terrible cook. We used to joke that her food only had flavor when she burnt the onions. So my mother kind of taught herself cooking and was a fearless cook, but didn't have much connection to Jewish food. Now, in Grandma Anna's defense, she did do a wonderful stuffed cabbage and a great blintz, but she was one of those grandmas who never used the oven, was full of paper bags. And I found that the hard way once by trying to preheat the oven. And her idea of tomato sauce was ketchup. So she really wasn't much of a cook, but she did her duty and did her cooking. And later we found out everything except for the blintzes and the stuffed cabbage that we really liked that she made, she bought from the kosher butcher's wife. So I have the Kocha Bush's wife to thank for anything that I really like that's Ashkenazi. So my mother, to back up, my mother was a very good cook, but not particularly Jewish. And so when I started doing my food writing and raising my family and doing my reading, I was looking for that Jewish connection. And I sometimes say everything I know about Judaism I learned through food. And it's because I was trying to find out, well, why do Jews prize chickens? Where does that come from? Why is this gefilte fish sweet? Why is this dish like this? Why is this dish like that? And it often comes back to local traditions and celebrations and religious reasons and symbolism, or a fact of life for Jews on the run and migrating. So it all kind of came together for me when I started the column at the J.
Someone has their hand up, so I'm going to ask to unmute. Susan, do you have a question? Susan, you can unmute. Yes or no? I don't know. Susan is not. Okay. Question. What are the proportions of tahini to pomegranate molasses?
Oh, it's pretty much by taste. And I do know I have in the cookbook under the summer roll recipe, I do give proportions there, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. And also you can make it with, if you want a kind of less potent dip, you can make with tahini sauce, which isn't quite as strong tasting as tahini. Yeah, I did give a sweet tahini sauce recipe in the book, which is you can use it for dipping your challah, your fried challah dough balls in it, or you can use it on top of ice cream, or you can use it as like a sweeter dip. And you could sub out the pomegranate molasses for this date syrup in the recipe and see how that works for you.
Susan also asked what recipes use pomegranate molasses besides putting them on toast?
Oh, besides putting the tahini in?
Yes.
Well, it's a drizzle on things like my falafel. I have a falafel recipe in the book, but it's not a fried falafel recipe. You make it into a crust and you bake it into a pizza, and you serve it with fresh feta and fresh herbs. And it's an important drizzle on that. It's a drizzle on a lot of different recipes, but I'd say the biggest amounts of it probably go into the pomegranate molasses brisket. And then I have like a pulled turkey recipe that uses a pomegranate base to it. And there's many more. I have a great index. You just can look up pomegranate molasses in the index and you'll see there's probably like 10 or 15 mentions.
Thank you. I think we'll go to the chicken now.
Okay, so I've already marinated and grilled up most of the chicken. So we're just going to do a little sample here. And we're not going to grill because I couldn't get my barbecue into the kitchen. So the one thing I want to say about this recipe is, again, it's relying on the halage, which is giving a lot of flavor with just one ingredient. So once you make up your batch, which is, a little bit of planning and a little bit of work, and you have it around, this comes together in an instant. You'll see how quickly it is. You should marinate the chicken about an hour at least, but you can do it overnight or 24 hours in the refrigerator. Just kind of turn it or stir it every now and then. And the longer it marinates, the kind of more intense the flavor will be. And I use boneless chicken thighs here because I feel that boneless chicken thighs will cook faster, and the idea that this is a speedy recipe. But you can sub bone-in chicken if you want, chicken with skin on if you want. If you do substitute chicken breast, just be aware you have to watch them very carefully or they'll dry out on the grill. So I already have my olive oil in here. I'm going to add my hawaji and salt. And this is lemon here. Just a reminder that fresh lemon juice is always best. Stick that right there. And then we have some lemon juice. And some garlic. And some chopped onion. Now, just stir it up. And I have an important safety announcement now. And that is, you you should always either reserve, say, a quarter cup of your marinade on the side to do basting with, or take your marinade after you take the chicken out of it and boil it for a few minutes. Because otherwise you're going to have raw chicken juices in there, raw chicken bacteria, and I don't want to be the one that gets you sick. So if you see a marinade recipe that doesn't have, you either reserve some on the side or boil it before you use for basting, please note this and do it yourself. So then I just have the chicken thigh in here, and then put that in, and we'll let it marinate for an hour or two, and I'll grill it up later. And I did these before, and you can sprinkle some cilantro or parsley on them. You can put some of your zug on it, which will add a little heat. Again, if you want zug without as much heat, seed them. And I will sometimes finish with a little bit of sumac and mint, just to create a little extra flavor. And then it's really nice. I didn't have a big enough one here to grate, so I'll just steal some of these chopped ones and put them on top. It's really nice with some grated tomato on top. And because the boneless chicken thighs, they cook in under 10 minutes, I would say, depending on whether you're doing them outside or under the broiler, on a grill pan or electric grill inside. And it's just quick and delicious, and it'd be great with some rice or couscous or whatever you would like on the side. So my vision for a summer Shabbat is the corn as a starter, and then the chicken as a main dish, and with a side of your choice, perhaps just some nice crusty pita bread and a green salad. Keep it light and easy. And then we're not demonstrating a dessert, but I gave a lot of thought to dessert, and I think I would like a fruit juice sorbet with it. I have a recipe for a fruit juice sorbet. You don't need an ice cream maker or sorbet maker. You just make it in the freezer. You buy a really high, you don't even have to juice the juice yourself. You just buy a really high quality juice from the supermarket, like a cold, fresh juice, and you go for it. Or you can make some choice baked lemon cookies, or just serve some fruit, which would probably be my husband's choice. He loves the fresh fruit of summer, all the stone fruit and stuff. And if your grill's still hot, you could cut a peach and just grill it on the grill, and that would be delightful. So that is my summer Shabbat menu, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. There's a question, and I'll answer it. Where are the recipes? Obviously in the book, 52 Shabbats, but
Yes.
For everyone who signed up, we will send out tomorrow or by Tuesday, the latest, the recipes. And they also can be found at underonetent.org, one of the signature programs of the Contra Costa Jewish Community Center. And I'll also share them with our sponsors, B'nai Shalom and Diablo Valley Hadassah, for them to send out as well. Are there any more questions? Well, we hope to have Faith back in the fall with an in-person event. And her book, again, is a wonderful gift for yourself. Not being selfish, because you're going to make food for yourself and family and friends. Yes, everyone will get a copy of the recording. That's another question. And people say,
Reva, can you, there's 3 bookstores that Under One Tent is affiliated with. It's Rakestraw Books in Danville, Arinda Books, Mrs. Dalloway's in Berkeley. Was there another one?
there was one that disappeared, unfortunately. Yeah, that just closed. Yeah, Rakestraw in Danville, Arinda, and Mrs. Dalloway also has a lot of cookbooks for those on the other side of the tunnel who are working or living.
And all these stores will do mail order, plus you can find other locations where to buy it by going to faithkramer.com. And if you do buy it, I hope you try some of the recipes. I'd love to see your photos. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can contact me through faithkramer.com, or it's simply faith@faithkramer.com. And please, if you have not subscribed already to the J, take advantage of the 52 Shabbats code promo, and you can sign up for their newsletters. So I'm very excited. The J newsletters have been 3 days a week, and they're going to 5 days a week, and they're totally free, and there's no paywall on any of these articles. And I'm very, very proud to be associated with the J, and it's award-winning journalism. And I like to eat, kind of cook global and eat local, and then you kind of read local, but you get the news from a global perspective as well.
I should ask you before we end, are there any supermarkets or makolets or spice stores in the East Bay where if people don't want to make things from scratch, they can pick up already blended spices?
Sure. Oaktown Spice has a lot of this stuff. Last time I checked, they didn't have it in Hawaj. But like New York Shoot does, if you're going to do mail order. Pansy's has the raw components. They don't have the finished spices, the finished spice mix. You can also, when you buy Hawaj, you really need to look for this yellow one. Hawaj is Arabic for all that is needed, but unfortunately, there's a lot of different Hawajis out there. There's Hawajis for coffee and desserts. And this is called Hawaji for soup sometimes, and it's also sometimes called Israeli mix for spice for soup. So I know Oakland Kosher sometimes has it as Israeli spice for soup. They don't have it under the Hawaji. I use a number of different brands, or I use my own. So the other places to look are in any place that would have a strong North African or Middle Eastern spice. They might have something. Again, it might be called mix for soup. It might not be called Hawaji. And Hawaji is like Hawaii with a J instead of the final I. I see some hearts. If that's for me, thank you. I can't really see my screen from here, but the hearts did stand out.
And as someone writes, and it's true, this is one of the best cooking demos I've ever gone to. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know we tried to do a lot, and I really debated doing it outside over the grill and everything, but I did want to talk to people about how do they know when their chicken's done? Because one of my pet peeves is overcooked chicken. Does everyone have a minute that we could talk about that?
Yeah, we have a minute.
With me? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of ways to tell. I mean, the easiest way is to cut inside it. And when you cut inside, it should be opaque throughout, no pink. I don't know if you can see this. I'm playing with my food. I'm sorry, mommy. So you can see there's no pink. It's still kind of moist and juicy, and there's no pink. And you could see that the juices that ran out on the plate are not pinkish at all. They picked up the yellow tint from the turmeric, but they're clear. The other way is the poke test. And you want to, this is hard to do over Zoom, so you want to feel it. So it should feel firm and resistant, but not hard. If it's hard, it's going to be overcooked. The last way is to use an instant read thermometer. I should have one around here somewhere. I said that. This is analog, old school. They still make them digital, and it has numbers around here. And you want to put it, when you don't leave it in as you cook it, you test as you go along. You want to put it in the thickest part, and it should pop up about 165. I will say that a boneless, skinless chicken thigh or breast is very hard to use this, but if you have a good thermometer and you check a couple of times and it's staying at 165, pull it. Then the other trick is to let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes so it can finish cooking, because even if you pull it off when it's exactly cooked, it's going to keep cooking. So you need to kind of pull off that instant before it's fully cooked so it doesn't overcook on you. And you let it rest 5 or 10 minutes, it'll start absorbing some of those juices and it won't be as dry. So that is my mini lecture on how to cook boneless, skinless chicken thighs or breasts.
Wonderful. Again, everyone, if you sign, everyone here signed up, of course, and you will get not only the recording sent to you within 2 days, but also the recipes. And you can also go to under1tent.org to tell your friends where to go for the recipes and also for the recording. Faith, we'll have you back again. You're wonderful. And
Thank
to
you, Rita.
everyone who joined us, if we don't see you on Thursday for fighting back about a legendary Israeli-American fighter pilot, 7:30. Have a great summer and enjoy food from 52 Shabbats.
Thank
Bye.
you. And please, if you have any questions, let me know. faith@faithkramer.com. I love answering questions, and I'm grateful to everyone for their interest in the book and trying the recipes and helping spread the word that
Jackie, one person has her hand up. Sorry, Jackie.
Sure.
I'm very bad at seeing hands. Jackie, do you want to unmute yourself? Yes? I guess not, but anyhow, if anyone has questions, you can email me, rivagambard@gmail.com, and I'll ask Faith for the answers. Have a great summer. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Rita. Thank you, everyone.